Freak of nature, a term NBA fans love to use for players with extremely unique physical or athletic characteristics. We've seen a lot of these players have success throughout NBA history, some of the most notable being Yao Ming and one of the greatest players to ever touch the court, LeBron James. These types of players usually get a ton of attention going into the NBA draft. So in today's video, we're going to take a look back at the biggest freak of nature from the last 10 drafts and where they are now. If you guys like the content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We've got a ton of content coming out. Let's try to get 14 likes on today's video, and let's hop into it. Let's start this off by going all the way back to the 2011 draft, a draft that would end up becoming one of the strongest we've ever seen. Now, there wasn't a very clear quote-unquote freak of nature coming out of this class. I would say the closest would be Derrick Williams. He was a 6'8", 250-pound small forward that could absolutely jump out of the gym. As a sophomore at Arizona, he would average 20 points and 8 rebounds, shooting 60% from the field. This was good enough for the Timberwolves to grab him with the second overall pick in the draft. His freakish athleticism would be on display very early as he would compete in the dunk contest, but overall, his NBA career was terrible. He's gone down as one of the biggest busts in NBA history. He would average 12 points in his second season, but would never reach double digits again. It would bounce around the league all the way up till 2018 when he went overseas and has been there since. Then you've got 2012, where again, you don't have someone that just screams freak of nature, but trust me, it picks up from here. You've got some guys I was thinking about, like Terrence Ross or Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, but ultimately, I think this one's gotta be the player that ended up going #1 overall, Anthony Davis. This was a player that for the most of his basketball career up until that point was a point guard. But after a growth spurt that saw him shoot up to almost 7 feet tall, he transitioned into the front court where he dominated, becoming the top player in high school, then dominated college basketball, leading Kentucky to a national title. The power forward with a 7'6" wingspan that still had some of those skills that he acquired as a point guard creeping into his game became the consensus top pick in the draft, and we know what's happened since. He's one of the most dominant bigs we've ever seen, already making 8 All-Star appearances at 28 years old and is fresh off an NBA championship. In 2013, we saw probably the most commonly cited quote-unquote freak of nature, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, he's definitely a case where he's become more of a freak of nature since getting to the league, but I still think we've got to give it to him for 2013. Going into that draft, he was a skinny kid from Greece that was probably as raw as you can get, but standing at 6'11" with well over a 7-foot wingspan and a decent handle, scouts were paying attention, and the Bucks decided to grab him with the 15th pick in the draft. His career didn't really get off to a super hot start, but as he grew as a player, both physically and skill-wise, he quickly became one of the biggest freaks of nature we've ever seen. This is someone that's competed in the dunk contest, has taken over the point forward role at moments, has become one of the most feared and versatile defenders in the league, and this season is averaging 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists, shooting 56% from the field. In 2014, there was really 2 guys I was thinking about, the first being Zach LaVine, with his ability to just fly like he's got springs in his shoes, or Bruno Caboclo, who I ended up deciding to go with. Going into that draft, there was a lot of interest in Bruno, and it was hard not to be interested. He was 6'9" with a 7'7" wingspan. Yes, 7'7". He was clearly gifted athletically, and like Giannis, had the coordination at such a crazy frame that made people pay attention. And like Giannis, we didn't know much about him with how little we got to see him play, as he had a very small role playing professionally in his home country of Brazil. The Raptors decided to take the chance on him with the 20th pick in the draft. Since coming into the NBA, he's flashed signs of crazy potential, but has struggled to crack a rotation for any significant amount of time. Our best chance to see him was in 2019 on the Grizzlies, where he played 24 games and averaged 23 minutes and 8 points as a 37% three-point shooter. Last season, he would end up being traded to the Houston Rockets and was on the roster to start this year, but was waived very early on in the season and signed onto a professional team in France, where he's playing currently. 2015 is no question. When you've got a player commonly referred to as a unicorn, there's a pretty good chance they're going to be considered a freak of nature. We're talking about Kristaps Porzingis. It's not often we see a player over 7 feet. It's very, very rare we see a player at 7'3" or taller. So it was insane to have a 7'3" power forward that a lot of people were saying was the best 3-point shooter in the draft. Just hearing that, it shouldn't have been a surprise when the Knicks took him with the 4th overall pick in the draft. As a rookie, he would only prove to be more of a freak of nature than we initially thought. He would have a highlight-filled rookie season, taking players off the dribble at moments, and yes, at a 7'3" frame. Since then, he's continued to grow as a player, and today, he's averaging 20 points, 9 rebounds, and still proving to be a very solid shooter, shooting 36% from 3 on over 6 attempts a game. 2016 is another no-brainer. Since the beginning of the one-and-done rule, we've rarely seen players come straight out of high school. One of those exceptions is Thon Maker. Now, his age has always been a mystery to this day, but he was said to be 19 years old going into that draft. In high school, he was one of the most viral players in the country, and for obvious reasons. He was a 7-footer, crossing up players and splashing threes. There was a lot of excitement throughout social media, but it was still very surprising when the Bucks decided to take him with the 10th overall pick in the draft. Despite high praise at moments, he's never quite reached that freak of nature potential. In his 5 seasons, he's averaged less than 5 points a game. He started this year off on the Cavaliers, but was waived just 8 games into this season and hasn't managed to land a new contract. For 2017, I gotta go with Jonathan Isaac. Leading up to that draft, we saw Jonathan constantly brought up in the same breath with one of the biggest freak of natures we've ever seen, Kevin Durant. Obviously, the offensive production that Durant had coming into that draft was uncomparable, but there was a lot of similarities with their frame and coordination. Isaac was 6'11" with over a 7-foot wingspan. Now, Isaac has probably become less of a freak of nature with his offensive production to this point, but has quickly become one of the more interesting players in this league with his insane versatility as a defender. He's currently recovering from an injury, but I'm excited to see his return with how many shots have freed up since his injury. In 2018, we saw the Orlando Magic grab the back-to-back freak of nature of the draft with the selection of Mo Bamba. What made him such a freak of nature was his record-setting wingspan. He stood at 7 foot with a whopping 7'10" wingspan. This, combined with his athleticism and potential on the offensive side, made him easily the biggest freak of nature in that draft. To this point in his career, he's been pretty disappointing, but I think a big factor of that has been a lack of opportunity, something that is quickly changing with the departure of both Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. He just went on a 3-game stretch, averaging 17 points, 16 rebounds, and 3 blocks. It's gonna be interesting to see what the rest of his career looks like, especially with him being a restricted free agent this summer. For 2019, I honestly couldn't decide between 2 players, that being Taco Fall and Zion Williamson. Taco Fall had to be on here because, well, he's the tallest player in the league, standing at 7'6". Since coming into the NBA, we've rarely gotten to see him play. So far this year, he's played in just 17 games. Zion Williamson is the definition of a freak of nature. 6'7", 285-pound power forward with a 40-plus inch vertical. Since being drafted with the #1 overall pick, he's lived up to most every expectation, as in just his 2nd season, he's averaging 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. For 2020, there really wasn't anyone I would consider a freak of nature. I think it'd probably come down to like Obi Toppin or James Wiseman, who I think I'm just going to give it to. He went down with a season-ending injury, but beforehand was playing pretty solid, averaging 12 points and 6 rebounds. But that's the video, guys. You guys tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Man, peace.